Hello and welcome to the National Career Service. My name is Jonny and I'm a careers advisor with the service, and I'll be taking you through the following presentation, which is an introduction to careers in construction. By the end of this presentation, you would be able to recognise trends in the construction sector, identify career opportunities and entry routes into construction, understand the range of apprenticeship levels, and access additional construction-related resources and support. So why might you consider a career in the construction industry? Well, firstly, and possibly the most important, is that it's a relatively stable area, and the increase of 1.3% in construction output has maintained in 2020, whereas other industries such as travel have been hit by the recent events. Now that's roughly around 170,000 new construction jobs which are going to need to be filled in the future. Unsurprisingly, a lot of those are going to be around public housing, especially in London, where there is a demand for housing which is going to need to be filled over the next few years. If you've got an interest in things like robotics, that is an area that's going to be coming up more in the future. So if you've got computing or design and engineering skills, you're going to be in high demand. And interestingly, it's worth noting the number of women going into construction is growing year upon year. So following on from that, here are some of the largest construction employers in London at the moment. You might want to take a few moments just to familiarise yourself with them. So if I was to say to you construction, what kind of jobs would normally come to mind? Take a moment to have a think. So you might have thought about things like carpentry, labouring, carpet fitting, window fitting, painting and decorating. Or you might have thought about scaffolding, bricklaying, plumbing, electrician, those kinds of roles. Now, these are typically associated with the area, and if you want to find out more about them, you can go to the National Career Service website and look at the job profile section, where it will explain each of these in a bit more detail. However, it is worth noting that there's a lot more jobs available in the area and things that you might not typically think about. So let's have a look at some of the emerging roles in construction. And these are things that might not typically be associated with construction as an industry. For example, there are quite a few telecoms installation engineering roles at the moment. If you're interested in technology, such as robotics or drones, then there's drone pilot or robotic engineering roles. If you like building technology or building machines, then assembly technician might be a job you're interested in. If you're good at 3D visualizing software, there are 3D visualizer jobs going, and they basically convert projects into the 3D format. And finally, due to some of the legislation that's come through, um, more and more projects are now having requirements to have a level of sustainability applied. So there's been an increase in jobs around that, such as sustainability officer or solar panel installation, etc. So it's a good place to look for green jobs. If big machines are something that appeal to you, then there's quite a few roles that you might want to consider, such as forklift operator, demolition operative, crane driver, or asphalt paver. Or you could consider construction plant operator, and they work in several areas, such as digging, dumping, and excavation. And finally, if you're interested in more academic or office-based roles, then there are quite a few specific jobs that you might want to think about, such as engineering or surveying, building site inspecting, estimator, architect, urban planning, project managing, and facilities manager. But more importantly, there are also quite a few core business functions. These are things that really you do not have to have construction background in order to fill. Say things like HR, finance, operations, sales, supply chain, communications. If you've got a background in any of these, you have transferable skills and could quite easily come into construction with them. So let's look at some of the more typical entry routes into construction, and they tend to broadly fall into three categories. The first being entry level work. So that might be things like cleaning, labouring, traffic marshalling. You don't typically need more than a level 1 qualification for this, although it will specify in each job advert. Typically training is provided and it takes no more than 2 weeks normally. For your skilled professionals, those are things like plumbers or carpenters or electricians, etc. You would need a level 2 or 3 NVQ, some trade knowledge and experience, but you can also access them through intermediate or advanced apprenticeships, which we'll talk about later. And finally, your more technical and management roles. So those are your higher level roles, your project management, kind of specialisms, etc. Typically, you would need a professional qualification, such as a degree or any level 4 or a higher national diploma. You can access them through higher level apprenticeships, and again, we'll talk about them shortly. So if you want to work for construction, more often than not, you're going to need something called a CSCS card. CSCS stands for Construction Skills Certificate Scheme, and it's basically a license for you to be on a building site. The CSCS issue a number of cards which reflect the different occupations and qualifications in constructions. The most common one is the labourer operative level, and that's pretty much for anybody who wants to set foot on a construction site effectively. Now, you will need the relevant health and safety qualification. However, most of the training providers out there, you would enroll on, you would go through your health and safety qualification, and then you would apply for your CSCS card as part of the training. The second one that we're looking at here is the advanced craft. So this is for people who've got a more specialised or a more advanced role. And you would need something like a related NVQ or SVQ level 3 for. And finally, there is a CSCS card for a professionally qualified person. So these are for your more high level roles. And part of getting this will to take a test covering the topics, including some of the things that you can see on the screen, such as construction regulations, demolition, and highway works. So as I previously mentioned, apprenticeships can be a great way for you to enter the construction industry. Now they are at different levels, as you can see on the screen, and each will take a certain amount of time to complete. Timescales do vary though, depending upon what kind of qualification you're going for, whether the program is scheduled or whether it's something that you can work through in your own time. And the more specialist ones, such as like architecture, for example, they typically do take a long time. So your entry one or your more intermediate one is level 2, and that can take a year or more, and it's equivalent of a GCSE. You could then continue on to a level 3 if you wanted to, which is an extra year normally, and is equivalent for an A level. You could do a level 4, which is equivalent of a higher national certificate, and that might be 2 years, and you will also have to have previous academic qualifications in order to access those. And the same goes for the level 6, which is normally 3 or more years and is equivalent to a degree. If you want to find out more about apprenticeships, then please go to the www.apprenticeships.gov.uk website. So now we're going to move on to some of the key organisations associated with the construction industry that you might find it useful to familiarise yourself with. The first one is the Construction Industry Training Board, the CITB. Now they're an organisation which are focused on providing training and supporting employers with getting funding for training, etc. So what they do typically is they work with the industry regarding the standards and qualifications. They also support employers in sourcing training and maybe providing funding, etc. And they also try and think about what kinds of training are going to be required in the future. So they kind of predict future market trends. So their website is on the screen there now. The next organisation we're going to look at is the Mayors Construction Academy, the MCA. Now, one of the things you might notice already is that there's quite a lot of training providers, skills to be learned, etc., if you want to get into the construction industry, and it can often be quite confusing. So the MCA typically try and bring all of this together and effectively improve communication. They've got hubs, and the hub coordinators are the connecting point between all the organisations helping to develop the workforce at a local level, whether it's employers or training providers, etc. So they aim to typically improve the supply of skilled construction workers. They scale up and extend high quality provision, intensify local collaboration, and support the development of training provision. They have a website which you can see on the screen, and I really do recommend that you have a look at it when you get a moment. So the construction industry has traditionally been associated with being a bit of a man's world. So women into construction were set up in order to promote gender equality and really encourage women to consider entering construction. And they're there basically to support them through things like work experience, job brokerage, or training support, etc. And once again, their website is on the screen right now. Next, I'm going to show you the Talent Retention Scheme website, which was set up by the Construction Leadership Council. It's basically a jobs portal for jobs in the construction industry. So it allows you to log in, upload your CV, look for work and apply for vacancies, etc. You can directly contact organisations and companies, and it should be simple and easy to use. And as I mentioned, it's purely focused around jobs in construction, engineering, and building services. So here's a more full list of useful organisations, including some of the ones I've previously mentioned. Take some time to have a look at them. I'll give you a moment. So we've come to the end of the presentation. Thank you for watching, and I hope you found it useful. If you'd like more information, you can go to the National Career Service website, as on the screen. If you live in London, you can also go to careersinspiration.co.uk. Remember, you can also book a free appointment with a qualified careers advisor by using the following contact information. You can call us on 0800 100 900, or you can email us at ncsbookings@prospects.co.uk. Thank you very much.